We're laughing and excited. Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Azoro Hype here. You don't see Gemma, but you see me. At least you get to see my beautiful face today. That's right, Gemma's camera is acting up, and at least you get to see me. Hey! But today, we're really excited to do this. We're going to talk about Marvel Avengers Infinity War, and what a movie it was, right, Gemma? It was just insane, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't hear you because your shirt's too loud.
Oh shit! I she I knew she was gonna say something about it. She always takes the piss out of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not on camera today, but I've got some exciting news. There will be some FaceTime with Secrets of the Citadel a week tomorrow. I'm getting all my background and everything reset up because it all got dismantled when we had some builders in. But a week tomorrow on Kyle's channel for our usual podcast. We're going to do it a little bit later, so it's more American friendly time. And yes, there will officially be, you've heard it here first, Secrets of the Citadel FaceTime. It's not one of my favorite things. I find it very distracting because I'm too busy looking at myself instead of focusing on giving you guys awesome content. But today you're just gonna have to suck it up and watch Kyle's shirt. But yeah, Infinity War.
This actually changes in the sun. So right now it's white, like all these little flower things are white, but it changes to purple in the sun. So I have you know that it's pretty bad. I step out and I'm like, yeah, there you go. Like, you know what I mean? You gotta rock a little pink if you're confident. You know what I mean? Like, who doesn't like it? You know? like Thanos is purple. Thanos is purple, right? Like that's a thing.
Yeah, no, he's rocking the purple grape vibe, isn't he? Absolutely. Hi, everybody in the chat, by the way. Thanks for joining us. Before we get into this, we need to do a major spoiler warning, don't we? Because this is
spoiler warning. We are talking about everything. We're going to even talk about Avengers 4 in this video. So if you haven't seen the movie, leave now. Don't get spoiled, okay? That's like the worst thing ever. You know, me and Gemma talk about that all the time. Go see this movie. Come watch this later. But if you have seen the movie and you love it, then yeah, totally hang out with us.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this movie and you don't want to be spoiled, why are you here? You know, I mean, have a little self-restraint. Go and watch the movie and then come back. And you can hear our thoughts on it, and you can see everybody's thoughts in the chat. And so, yeah, come back and watch it again. But don't spoil it for yourself. As somebody that watched it with minimal spoilers, really. I mean, we did a lot of theorizing, but I
mean, we kind of knew what was going to happen. We kind of knew what was going to happen at the end. I think we both followed the comics growing up. We're going to talk about that in a second, but let's do a shout out first, Gemma. We got it. The super chat is working again, everyone. It's got fixed, so that's good. I'm not going to get screwed out of hundreds of dollars before Con of Thrones, which is a big relief. Ty Cat says, choo choo choo, all aboard the hype train. We do have a new nickname for everyone that gets hype, the Legion of Hype and the Hype Bringers. So that's what you guys are. We voted on that on Patreon. But we got Ty Cat in the chat. We got Mom Ogre. We got Helen. What's going on? We got the Prince That Wasn't Promised. G's name taken. We got Scott McCloy, Linda. We got Ashley Marie, Amy. We got Christina. Thank you for that donation to the GoFundMe, by the way. We appreciate that. The okayest Taylor. Talamasca Dan says, get hyped. Get this man a beard trimmer. Get the mind plate stretcher. All right, Dan. Steffi's, Bianca Flores, Shark Vaders, and I'm sure there's some more of you that will show up as well. Okay, Gemma, do we want to start off with the cold open, the first scene? We kind of just get thrown into it, and it's like, wow. Thanos takes out Loki. Pretty big deal, right?
Yeah, and this is where we know straight off the bat that this guy means business and this film means business. Because what we've seen before, because I mean, you know, let's not beat around the bush. There are different degrees and levels of Avengers, aren't there, in this universe? We've got what I would call the lesser level, the Scarlet Witch, she's massive. Black Widow and Hawkeye, for example, they're kind of like the ground level guys. And then you've got the big players. You've got the Hulk, you've got Thor, you've got Loki, and normally what we see is the low levels get thrown at the big bad and then get taken down, and then they have to bring their big guns in. But no, this time it was straight in with Thor, Loki, and Hulk. You know, three of the strongest out of all of these guys just taken down like they were nothing. And it was, we've said so many for years that Loki has been one of, if not the fan favorite villain in the MCU. And it was almost like Thanos was kind of picking up that mantle, move over Loki, I'm here now. And that's kind of how that felt. But
yeah, the big thing, Gemma, was he already had the Power Stone, right? Like, that's a big deal. Xandar got wiped out. We're going to talk a little bit about Nova later, possibly being in Avengers 4, a great hero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But we see, like, Hulk's already laid out. Heimdall, you know, gets taken out pretty quickly. He gets taken out by Corvus Glaive. Corvus Glaive gets stabbed in the chest with that spear that seems to be able to, you know, discharge like magnetic blasts and psionic blasts and stuff like that, which was a pretty sweet weapon. Heimdall dying was huge, but, you know, obviously when Thanos is like taking out the Hulk like really easily, it was like, you know, Ebony Maw saying, wow, like, you know, let him have his fun. And Thanos was just like Muay Thai boxing him, making the Hulk look like a child, which is insane because if we think about the Avengers, you know, Thor's up there as like the strongest because he's basically a god. Then we have Thor, and Captain America's kind of a tier below them. So for Thanos to just take out the Hulk like that was a big major first impression in the movie, which I found really awesome.
Yeah, I actually, a lot of people have said, like, we didn't see the Hulk from that point onwards. And I actually really enjoyed seeing more Banner in this one because, of course, in Ragnarok, it was very much the opposite of that, wasn't it? It was almost all the Hulk. So it was not, and we were worried, and we had this conversation, didn't we, Kyle, where we said, you know, Banner's basically saying if the Hulk comes back again, I don't know if I'll be lost entirely. So that was the worry that the Hulk would take over Banner, but actually that it's very much the opposite of that expectation that now he's had this internal battle with the Hulk that he doesn't want the Hulk to come. And then when he does, he doesn't want to come. And it's just this beautiful reverse Jekyll and Hyde thing that's going on. And
that was a good comedic element in the movie too, for a movie that had that Red Wedding type feel throughout the movie. It did have that Game of Thrones typey vibe where it was more of a somber movie. It felt more like the DC universe that we see, you know, with more of the real dark, that they really perch on the darkness and the more serious moments in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think we've been getting more of that. Obviously, you know, with Winter Soldier, we get more of the political elements, like, hey, you know, the control of the population and that kind of stuff, and they're interweaving elements of, obviously civil disrest and stuff like that because of the Avengers. They're weaving stuff in from our own human history and putting it into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that was something that was, you know, nice to cut that really, really somber vibe, because Thanos like just basically wrecks everyone the whole movie, right? Like,
pretty much, yeah. He basically outlined exactly what he intended to do, and then he did it.
Mama Ogre has a question, Gemma. Is it bad that it took 8 years to actually see Thanos? I say no, because he was the best character in this whole movie. For me personally, whether you agree with his methods or not, he was the most compelling character, because we've got to spend time with all of these other characters throughout, you know, a handful of movies. You know, Captain America's been in like 5 or 6. Iron Man's been in like almost 10 movies. But Thanos, he's been like, you know, briefly, you know, he's been sitting in his chair, and we got, you know, brief moments with him. But this movie was a Thanos movie, and everybody else was kind of like dealing with Thanos.
Yeah, Scott McCloy has said, fingers crossed for World Breaker Hulk in Part 2. Oh, yes, I would. I'm not sure what it would take to bring World Breaker Hulk out. Maybe if he went back to Earth and well, no, he's on Earth. Maybe if he discovered Betty was one of the Turn to Ash people, perhaps it would take something pretty insane to bring out World Breaker Hulk. But he would potentially stand a chance against Thanos if that Infinity Gauntlet is now out of play, which has been something many people have theorized about. But I'd just love to see Worldbreaker Hulk. I mean, I do think we need to see a next level Hulk in Avengers 4, don't we?
We're going to talk about the Infinity Gauntlet a little more towards the end. We obviously saw Thanos use the space gem to teleport out. So that's something that is still up for debate. Scott has a really interesting point. Was disappointed that they didn't show how Thanos got the Power Stone. I have a theory on this one. I think we're going to see Nova in Avengers 4, and I think we're actually going to see a flashback to how Xandar got destroyed. So don't count that out yet, because I think there's going to be some really interesting time elements in the next Avengers. Remember, Doctor Strange was huge in Avengers 3. He was one of the 4 or 5 main characters through the whole movie, and I wouldn't discount seeing that, Scott, in the next movie. Just keep that in mind. I think we will probably see some flashbacks and some kind of time swapping elements in Avengers 4. Gemma, did we want to talk anything about the first scene? Again, obviously we know Thanos gets the Tesseract, crushes it in his hand. Ebony Maw was sweet in the first scene too. They really made a big impression with him too.
Well, we're kind of going to do this kind of in order, aren't we? But we're going to kind of flip backwards and forwards as is the nature of the discussion. But I loved Ebony Maw. I just thought he was stellar. He was
the best out of the Black Order. I think he was the most interesting out of the Black Order, I think.
Yeah, but in general, how did you feel about the Black Order? Because a lot of the reviews, and I do think they're grasping at straws, because this movie was insanely incredible.
Okay, while you're saying that, give your score out of 10, Gemma, because, I mean...
Oh, heck. Right now, my score out of 10, 9.5.
I think I'd give it a 9.75. I dock it just a little bit because Captain America fell flat for me in this movie. Other than that, I thought it was just insane. I saw it twice. You saw it twice too, right, Gemma?
I saw it twice on opening day. Yes.
So I saw it twice on opening weekend. I saw it on the Thursday and the Saturday. I'm probably gonna go see it again this week. My friend hasn't saw it yet, and he wants to go see it, so I'm gonna probably go do that again. So that wraps up the first day. We're gonna kind of do this in order, everyone, but we will get to your questions in the chat and try to address them as much as we can. Any questions I'm putting in our little sidebar, and we will address them for you. Okay, what was the next scene, Gemma? We obviously the Hulk gets thrown by Heimdall into Earth, right?
I know we've got a lot to cover here, but before we move on, I think we need to address Valkyrie, Korg, and Meek, because a lot of I think initially, and my assumption initially, and I believe a lot of people were on the same page, was that they were dead. We just didn't see them. They must be dead. But later on in the film, Thor does say he killed half of my people, which obviously means he didn't kill the other half. So are we assuming that Valkyrie, Korg, and Meek have escaped with the rest of the Asgardians before we saw that opening shot?
The Russo brothers confirmed actually that Valkyrie is still alive. By the way, two days ago. So Valkyrie is still alive. I'm assuming we're going to see her in the 4th movie. They're actually, out of all the characters that are still left between Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man, I still think they might do a Thor 4, because in the comics, we talked at we see. I mean, for those of you who have seen Thor Ragnarok, Odin, this place looks like home, and they actually make a new Asgard on Earth. So I'm assuming that we might at least get that scene at some point. Maybe we get it in Avengers 4, and that's where they end Thor's story, because I think they're wrapping up, the first 3 phases, and then they're moving into phase 4, obviously, with more of the cosmic part of the cinematic universe.
I'm glad that's been confirmed, because and that was my line of thought anyway. But and people have asked me, who dies. I know a lot of people die, and I said, it would be so much quicker for me to list the people that survived, to be quite frank. So it's nice to have a couple more to add to that list. I really like Korg in particular. I think he's awesome.
He's awesome too. Yeah, I loved him in Thor Ragnarok. I see some of you making predictions for who's going to kill Thanos in the next movie. We're actually going to do that later. So G's name taken says my money is on Nebula. We got some theories for you that we're going to talk about after we talk about all of our scenes. This is going to be a longer. We got about an hour and a half for this one. Me and Gemma made sure we got some time for this one today. But we will talk about predictions on who may kill Thanos if he does get killed. Okay, next scene. Obviously, we saw Heimdall commit one last act of bravery. He sends Hulk through the Bifrost Bridge into Earth, and then that's obviously we get the scene from the trailer. He's landed in Doctor Strange's front porch, basically, and then we have Wong and Doctor Strange talking about the Sorcerer Supreme is broke, basically, and he wants to go get a pastrami sandwich. Which is a funny moment. But I absolutely loved all of them together. I think they were my favorite kind of tag team, Doctor Strange and Iron Man.
That conversation about not being able to afford a sandwich. Now, bear with me on this, because I think sometimes it's in these subtler moments that the themes start to be established. And Wong essentially says something along the lines of attachment to the material equals detachment from the spiritual. And he's talking about not being able to afford a sandwich, obviously. So, but I actually think he's setting up a major theme of
the Soul Stone. Are you talking about the Soul Stone theory? Okay.
The nature of sacrifice and what are you prepared to do? Because so many characters in this film have this pivotal moment where they have to make a sacrifice. Scarlet Witch has to do it. Star-Lord has to do it. Doctor Strange has to do it, and not all of them they either hesitate or they're not quite able to. And Captain America says on more than one occasion, we don't trade a life for a life. Whereas,
I actually think that's gonna play in the next movie, Gemma.
I agree, 100%.
Because I don't think Captain America's going to make it. Isn't it rumored that only 2 of the original Avengers are going to survive the next movie, and they're the only ones that are alive right now? So that's a big thing, because that means things would have to get reversed, and they would maybe a whole like sacrifice type of thing, like we see in Game of Thrones, like the Kiss of Life, where Captain America has to give his life for Bucky or something like that. We might have to see some major things go down that way.
This is what I'm interested in. So the rumor is, out of the OG 6 Avengers, only 2 will survive at the end. If that's the case, and this is a question to you, Kyle, but also obviously to everybody in the chat, which 2 do you think will be left? For me, it's Black Widow and Hawkeye.
I don't know, because Tony talking about how he saw a future and him and Pepper having a child. I don't know. Maybe she is pregnant and Tony ends up sacrificing, because Tony's been willing to sacrifice himself at every moment anyways. Like,
well, this was another theme, wasn't it? Another major theme was the concept of being a father, wasn't it? Obviously it started off with Tony wanting to be a father. Thanos himself was a stepfather, but he wanted to be like this god figure, father type figure. He even calls Scarlet Witch at one point. He says, "My child." There's so many. People think, oh, this is just some action-packed superhero movie, but actually, this is some deep stuff going on within the context of this film, isn't it? It's some really dark, deep, philosophical themes going on.
Now, you talked about the Soul Stone a little bit. We saw that more towards the end of the movie, obviously, when Thanos is inside the Soul Stone after he snaps his fingers and he has a conversation with Gamora. You got what you wanted. I think that it's really interesting to note that some of the villains are apparently rumored to come back in Avengers 4, like Ronan the Accuser and others. So if they do break the Soul Stone somehow and everybody gets revived, that would mean some of the villains maybe get revived too, which would be very interesting. I know most of them have died in their own respective movies, but that could be something that we see.
Speaking of revived villains, and I know we're skipping ahead a little bit here, but Red Skull What?
Whoa, that was one of the big shockers for me during the movie.
That was so good, and I know it was.
Gemma, we gotta stop skipping ahead. We gotta go. We're gonna skip so many good parts of the movie.
I've got a question, right, about Red Skull, right? I know it wasn't Hugo Weaving, but the
it was Ross Marquand from The Walking Dead. He plays Aaron,
and he did a great job. But and maybe I'm just being pedantic here, but like when he got to Vormir, like who was there to give him this job? Like, did he get a set of instructions, or did he have to like build his way up? And who made that awesome cape? And now the Soul Stone's been. I mean, is he redundant now? Is he done? There's just so many questions regarding what went on there with the Red Skull. But yeah, I loved seeing him. But yeah, let's backtrack. Sorry, I'm way ahead of myself.
So Doctor Strange, obviously, Pepper and Iron Man, or Pepper and Tony are having a stroll through the park, and she's like, "Well, you're never going to be able to be a family man if you have that thing in your chest." And Tony's like, I want to promise you this, and then boom, Doctor Strange shows up, and and Bruce is like, Pepper knows something is seriously wrong when Bruce hugs them. So they obviously go together, and then we have, we have this monologue through the movie. Who is Thanos? Gamora. They did it in the trailer where it looks like Gamora is talking to Tony, but it's actually Wong that's talking about the Infinity Stones, and then Gamora is talking to Thor and them about Thanos. So there's two separate moments where they kind of introduce Thanos in these different groups, and then we know that Tony doesn't want to call Captain America, which is a thing, right? He's still pretty pissed off that Bucky killed his parents, but he still has the cell phone, and that kind of gets thrown in the wind when we see
Squidward.
We see Ebony Maw, and what's the other guy's name? My God, I'm forgetting.
Coverslave. No, he was with Cull Obsidian, wasn't he?
Cull Obsidian, yes. So Cull Obsidian and Ebony Maw, and then Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive are the other group that ended up fighting Vision in them. But there were some really awesome scenes. Obviously, Stan Lee, the cameo driving the bus, which was really sweet. Spider-Man jumping out, and his buddy saying, "Oh, we're all gonna die," and then everything kind of coming together. That was a sweet fight scene. I really like. Ebony Maw using his mystical power. He was very much like Doctor Strange. Like they were kind of one and the same, basically.
Yeah, when Ned said, "We're all going to die," I did mutter #foreshadowing under my breath. I have to admit, I kept it to myself, but I just thought, I hope that's not foreshadowing, and it totally was. Wow. I mean, did you cry? Because I did. I'm not going to lie. I cried a few times. I laughed. I cried.
I got pretty close to crying, yeah. I mean, Gamora was obviously really sad, but the Peter Parker scene was way sadder than that one, I think. I mean, actually, the saddest moment out of everything was when Star-Lord was like, "No, you didn't," and he thought, because they declared like we find out they've fallen in love, right? They're both singing the same song when they're in the spaceship and stuff.
Let us know. Did you cry? Come on, be honest. No judgment here. I cried many times.
The Thor moment too.
That was my favorite moment of the whole film. When Thor has his heart-to-heart with Sweet.
And he's like laughing, trying to be all like godlike and tough. He's trying to be Thor, but he's got that moment of weakness, and he's lost Odin. He thinks he's lost, pretty much everyone. He's like, "What else could I lose?" And then
that was my favorite moment of the entire film.
That was one of the only moments that got a huge cheer in the theater. Obviously, later on, we talked about moments that got a cheer in the movie. When Thor shows up with Stormbreaker later, when he just like busts the hammer down and everything explodes.
Badass! That was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. It just wow. This is a lot of film to process, isn't it? That so much happened. I mean, and we keep saying we're going to do this in order, and then we can't help ourselves. And
there was someone that cried in the theater. It was a little boy that was like right behind me, and he cried when Groot disintegrated.
Oh no!
He was like wailing. It was pretty bad. I actually thought the parents should have took him out. because then at the end credits scene, he cried again. I was like, oh, I keep him in for the end credit. I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna be a disaster. Because I knew it was gonna happen, because we obviously, as soon as the truck crashed, it was like, oh my god, it's gonna happen again.
Yeah.
Poor little boy. Another thing that we should point out, Gemma, Peter Dinklage. He's not small in the movie. He's actually quite large.
I love Tyrion was awesome. I'm like, well, Tyrion Lannister's here. He's gonna sort everything out. But for me, and I hate to say this, but it didn't quite, and I can't put my finger on why. But those scenes didn't quite work for me. I'm really not
sure why. Was the pacing because it kind of took you out? Yeah.
I was a bit thrown by some timeline issues. I'm not going to lie, because Yitri, who is Peter Dinklage, asks Thor, why didn't Asgard protect them while he was being forced to make the Gauntlet? And Thor explains that Asgard's been wiped out, which obviously happened at the end of Ragnarok. But we saw Thanos with the Gauntlet at the end of Age of Ultron. So I was too busy trying to process that in my mind, and maybe it threw me out of the moment.
Well, we don't really know how long he's been like that there. I mean, his hands were bound and whatnot. So there was some continuity issues.
There was a couple. Yeah.
I want to say continuité en français. I was see guys, I can't pronounce, like, I speak French, so some English words are like, I get messed up by it. You wouldn't know that I speak French, but like, see how I had to say continuity instead of continuité? Oh my god.
No, we've got a few people in the chat, and I'm so pleased, because obviously we're all Game of Thrones fans here, but people are agreeing with me about the Dinklage bit. Tamaska Dan says that part sucked. G's name taken says she wasn't a fan of his cameo either. Isn't that strange how it just... I'm glad it's not just me anyway. I mean, maybe...
Yeah, that wasn't my favorite scene. Like, I think because at that point in the movie, we were reaching the climax, and it was like, I enjoyed the bit when Thor's trying to, he's taking on the power of a neutron star. That was neat. But the other stuff was, yeah.
Jesse Knows said because he was Tyrion and not a space dwarf. He wasn't Yitri. He was, and that is a really valid point. He was Tyrion, wasn't he? Not...
Yeah, it was definitely different, for sure. We're going to get back to that in just a moment, Gemma. We actually got a donation from Michael Palmer. Which was your favorite set-piece battle? Mine was Thanos versus Team Stark with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Ooh, it's really tough for me to pick one. I mean,
I've got one. Well, you think...
I also really enjoyed the battle in Wakanda, because like Rocket and Bucky are doing like the spin, and Thor's killing people with Stormbreaker, and yeah, that they're both real. But that's probably the best fight scene, because it was the most like drawn out. Because Tony has his Extremis armor on, which was sweet too.
What was your favorite in the chat? Let us know. My favorite was when Doctor Strange had his face off with Thanos, and he did all of his yoga poses, and then there was hundreds of Doctor Stranges, and then he turned things into butterflies, and then he had all the arms, and he was doing his yoga thing, and that was just a whoa.
Doctor Strange was my favorite Avenger in this movie. Yes. I was really surprised that they used some of his techniques, because in the comics, he while he's studying, he learns techniques from the Ancient One's library and whatnot. Being the Sorcerer Supreme, he learns all of these different techniques through his time being Sorcerer Supreme. So I thought that was really cool, and he's using different techniques. He's using the time stone. I don't know. It was really tough for me to pick out one. I really enjoyed Thor beating the crap out, when he shows up and he's got the hammer, and then the Bucky and Rocket Raccoon part. That was probably my favorite, but it's really close.
When Rocket had his eye on Bucky's arm, I laughed.
I'm getting that arm. I'm getting that arm.
I literally cried, and that was the second time I cried through laughter. The first time I was almost beside myself was Drax. How long have you been standing there? An hour. That was just
and then he's like my movements are so precise that you cannot see what I'm doing.
Hi, Drax.
Mantis, I actually love Mantis. She's really grown on me as a character. There's a great comment in the chat here. Scott McCoy says, I really like the reality gem scene on Nowhere when Peter Quill's shooting up the bubbles out of his gun. Oh my god, and he can't kill Gamora. I was like, oh my god, that was a really tough scene. I was like getting emotional in that scene.
When Thanos turns Drax into blocks and Mantis into spaghetti, that's a strip directly taken out of the Infinity Gauntlet comic, and I really appreciated seeing those nods. I did think they were dead for a second. That was a scary moment, but obviously
people gasped in the theater over that because, like, I read the comics, so I knew that they were gonna be fine after Thanos left. But a lot of people, like my cousin, he was with me. He's like, "Oh my god, Drax is dead." I was just like laughing on the inside. I'm like, "No, he's not."
Doesn't that suggest to you how clearly they had established the stakes of this film? If that had been any of the other MCU films, we wouldn't have assumed that they were dead. That wouldn't have been the auto response. The auto response would have been, how are they going to fix this? But in this particular film, it was, oh, they're dead. And this is how much they had already raised the stakes, that puts us in that situation of heightened tension. When Tony Stark got stabbed in his side, I thought that was it. I thought that was game over.
I didn't. I was like, because I knew Doctor Strange. I'm like, I've always said that the Soul Stone will be affected by Tony Stark, and people were like, "No, Kyle, you're wrong." But that scene though, and I want to point this out because actually, Linda was someone who pointed this out to me on Facebook last night. But this is what I noticed in the movie, and a lot of people are kind of misinterpreting what Doctor Strange actually was seeing. That was the outcome that he saw. Thanos getting the time stone. That was, I mean, there was only one outcome. So he saw that outcome, and he knew that if Tony died, they were all screwed. So that is the outcome that Doctor Strange saw out of the 24,600,000 or whatever he saw.
14,605. But yeah, absolutely.
Oh, leave it up to Gemma to actually do the math correctly.
I took notes. I was in the cinema taking notes. That's how sad I am. Yeah, that was absolutely part of the plan, because, I mean, early on in the film, Doctor Strange makes no bones about it. He makes it very clear. I will let you and I will let the boy die if it means protecting the time stone. He makes that abundantly clear. And then all of a sudden, after he's seen his 14,605 scenarios, only one of which they actually win, he instantly is prepared to give up the thing that he's been protecting the entire time in order to save Tony Stark, which obviously lends itself to a very clear indication that all of this hinges on Tony Stark being alive, because he says, doesn't he, now we're entering the end game.
Which is apparently the title of the next movie, Avengers of Endgame. That
would make a lot of sense. I've heard somebody suggest that it's going to be Avengers Assemble. And I said, well, it can't be Avengers Assemble, because we've already had Avengers Assemble. In America, the first Avengers film was just called The Avengers. But in England, it was called Avengers Assemble. So it can't be that, can it? I've heard some pretty crazy suggestions, actually. But Infinity Gauntlet was one of them, but I feel like we've done that. But yeah,
I mean, this was the Infinity Gauntlet movie. I mean, well, exactly. He finished the Infinity Gauntlet.
Exactly. Endgame. I can roll with that. I'd be happy with that.
You know, it's really interesting because then we start to get into theories about how they will defeat Thanos. And, you know, obviously earlier in the chat, we had a comment talking about, I think Nebula is going to be the one to do it. And there's like, 14 or 15 different ways that the story has been redone. Obviously, Nebula is one of them, and that would make sense because Gamora is the Soul Stone is the special stone. It holds a special place among all of the Infinity Gems, and I think it's going to be really interesting because we heard that Nebula got really close to killing Thanos. He said it himself. He's like, she got really close to killing me, which is interesting because Thanos just wrecks everyone. Right?
Yeah, I love that little throwaway comment. Blink and you'd miss it. But he does, the reason why he's torturing her, like you correctly just said, is he says very briefly, she tried to kill me and she almost did it. And we get no further explanation. We get no exposition. There's no flashback. We have no idea what went down in this scenario where Nebula nearly killed Thanos, and it makes the mind absolutely boggle. But yeah, I think that is a huge clue to moving in. And I think, and you've said it, and a lot of people in the chat have said it a lot, that the big money's on Nebula, isn't it?
More and more I think about it, I think that they're going to go with Thanos reversing everything somehow, or this is the other best option because it was with the end credit scene. And the next two movies that we're getting before Avengers Infinity War are Ant-Man, and the new trailer just came out, and they actually showed the subatomic realm. So Hank Pym has actually figured out how to go there and navigate it. And on the poster, Michelle Pfeiffer plays Hank Pym's wife. So she's in the movie. We know that. Now, they might be in the subatomic realm while Thanos wipes everyone out and they're safe. Then we know, obviously, that at the end, Captain Marvel is contacted by Nick Fury, and we know that Captain Marvel is going to be set in the 90s. So where the hell has Captain Marvel been? But we don't know that. But we know that the Russo brothers have went on record saying that she's even stronger than Thor. So for people that don't know about Captain Marvel, she basically absorbed the energy from a nuclear blast, a Kree blast, and she becomes fused with Kree DNA, and she becomes like, she can fly in outer space and shoot beams from her hand, and she's super, super strong. So I think, because Adam Warlock is rumored to not be in the next movie, I think she's going to be the one to put on the gauntlet and then deal with Thanos, if they're going to go that route anyways.
Yeah, otherwise it would have been a bit of a pointless end credits scene if she doesn't play a significant role. I really enjoy the theory and the idea that actually the only person that can defeat Thanos is actually Thanos, in that he'll think, you know what, in hindsight, maybe I didn't go about things the way that I should have. Maybe I could have used that reality stone to provide all the resources that all these people needed.
Well, I don't think it's even that, Gemma. I think that he will see that people are still going to kill each other anyways, because he sees himself as like this equalizer, right? And I think he's going to see that, wow, like I'm really not destined to be who I think I was. You know what I mean? Kind of like Jaime Lannister, a little bit, which is really interesting. And it's so crazy because a lot of people are like, wow, Thanos' motivations, like, I can't believe how many people he killed. But the more I think about it, the more his ideologies make sense. Like, his planet went through what's called a pole shift when Star-Lord is doing, for those of you who might not have noticed, it was 8 degrees off his axis. So there were so many, it was so industrialized, and there's so much stuff going on that the planet actually went through a pole shift and went through a cataclysmic event where, a mass amount of the population had died.
So where are we up to now? I think we're still at Tony and Pepper having a talk, aren't we?
Well, you won't really, yeah, so we just kind of went on it. But so that scene obviously goes down, and then Spider-Man shows up. Tony's new armor was sweet. That was one of the things that I really liked about this movie.
The bleeding edge, or at least inspired by the bleeding edge. I actually said yes out loud when I saw that crawling up his body, and that was a cool moment, definitely.
Going back to the bleeding edge armor, the fight on Titan when he's like, it's all like reassembling, like the nanites are reassembling, and then he's like, he does the spin. I love his fighting style in this movie because it's always different, right? Because of his suit.
Yes.
And that's one thing I really like about Iron Man compared to, like, you know, we know that Falcon's going to do like some jump kicks and punches and stuff, but Tony always has something interesting to do because his suit is always evolving, and he's evolving. So that's really interesting. But back to that scene, what was your favorite moment in the fight scene in New York?
When Tony Stark called Ebony Maw Squidward.
Yeah.
That was absolutely fantastic, because you know when you're in a film that's predominantly a kids film, for example, and they slip in all these Easter eggs for the adults, to these references that only the adults really get, and so the adults are enjoying the film on a different level to the children. But this was a reference that both the adults and the children would understand, and everybody laughed at that. Apparently in France, Squidward was taken out, and they actually, Tony Stark calls him Voldemort instead.
That's sweet. That's really funny.
Yeah.
I can see because yeah, I mean they did take some of the stuff from the trailer out of the movie, by the way.
Yeah, quite a lot. 5
or 6 parts actually.
Yeah, quite a few. There was obviously the scene with them all running with the Hulk in the background. That
in Wakanda, yeah, that didn't happen with the running through the forest.
There was Thor holding Stormbreaker aloft when he
when it's up like he's because Groot makes the handle and then it goes to his hand, and then we see that then it powers up Thor. Then there was also there's one line from Thanos on Titan. I can't remember. It was in the first trailer. That wasn't in as well, which is really interesting.
The introduction when Peter Parker introduces himself as Peter to Doctor Strange, and he says, "Oh, we're using our made-up names." That was in, but it was framed entirely differently, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just like, "Oh, we're using our made-up names now. I'm Spider-Man."
Yeah, I had to explain to my children that was hilarious on many levels, because Doctor Strange is his real name.
Stephen Strange. And by the way, if and this is kind of a simple thing, but you know, Peter Parker, Stephen Strange, you know, there's a lot of Bruce Banner. A lot of these names have the same letter for the first and last name, so they can. They
love their alliteration in superhero names, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Clark Kent. They do it in DC as well, don't they?
You know, obviously after the Ebony Maw gets his way, Cull Obsidian gets thrown off into the Arctic and gets his hand chewed off, and then we see Peter on the donut ships, one of the donut ships, and then obviously he's gonna die if he because he's gonna not be able to breathe. And then we see Tony send out the Iron Spider suit, which was awesome. I love that. And, Tony's trying to talk to Pepper, and then we get them traveling. Get that they do the space jump to Titan.
Yeah. Cindy Sammy says, I still need to know if Thanos was doing it for his love, Mistress Death. Now, it would appear that motivation had been removed from the MCU, but I must admit, for a split second before the Red Skull reveal, and we just saw this shadowy
You're going to see Hela? You thought it was going to be Hela?
I thought it would be some kind of nod to Mistress Death. Just for a brief moment, but actually I was far more happy that it was the Red Skull. That really worked for me. Jeremy Carlton says, do you think the Black Order will come back? What do you think, Kyle?
I think there's, if we're going with the Soul Stone theory that, everybody will be released from the Soul Stone that got disintegrated, it's going to be really interesting to see if they bring back some of the villains, because that's the rumor in the next movie. Because they're talking about how Return of the King from Lord of the Rings was a big influence for Avengers 4. They're going to have this like Mordor type of scenario where, think of Thor as like Aragorn, and like Ant-Man and Captain Marvel as like Frodo and Sam. There's going to be these different moments where you're going to be like, okay, well, how are they going to get rid of the Infinity Gauntlet? We don't know if it's still working for sure. It looks pretty charred to me, but we know that And Night of Valir has another one, or at least a mold for another one. So we don't know what's going to happen with that. But we got to assume that Thanos is still going to be wreck and shop in the next movie, and they're going to have to do it.
In that final scene with Thanos, and he's got that little smile on his face, and that's another comic book nod to Farmer Thanos, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But if you know the comics, you'll understand that reference. But yeah, the gauntlet itself actually looked pretty banged up at the end, and I've seen people theorize that this means that it no longer works, the stones no longer work, that it was like a one-time deal, at least in the MCU. But for me, I just cannot see how this can diminish the power of the stones. That they're infinity stones, not finite stones. I mean, they're called infinity. That suggests to me that their power is not going to run out at any point. So yeah, whether a new gauntlet is required, that Tony or Cap or whoever can take on, that's a very feasible plan in my humble opinion. I do have a question for you though. And
actually, my favorite fight scene, I'm changing my mind, was when Drax, all of them were taking on Thanos at once, and you know.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
That was sweet.
I've got a question for you, Kyle, and for everybody in the chat. Now, throughout this film, we got two types of death. Now, I'm using you can't see me, but I'm using my fingers to indicate inverted commas there for death. So we've got Loki, Heimdall, Vision, and Gamora, and the general consensus is that they will be permanent deaths, no resurrections this time. And then, of course, you have pretty much everybody else, like all of the Guardians,
Groot, Bucky, Black Panther, Peter, Star-Lord, Drax, the
whole shebang. And the theory is that they're not permanent deaths. But do you agree with that? Because I have a couple of question marks over these so-called permanent deaths in the form of Loki, Gamora, Heimdall, and Vision. I only think two of those are definitely dead.
Loki's 100% dead.
Yes, I agree.
I think that Gamora is probably the other one. Actually, so do you think you think Gamora is going to come back? I mean, they're doing another Guardians.
I think Heimdall and Loki are dead. Proper dead.
Idris Elba has a lot on his plate, so that would make sense. Tom Hiddleston said in an interview that he was done playing Loki, though. I think
he's now talking about Loki in retrospective, that it has been a blast.
So this is really interesting then, Gemma. You think that because of Gamora's in the Soul Stone, I mean, she got sacrificed for the Soul Stone. If we go with the theory that Thanos, like, if Thanos does die, does Gamora survive then? Because he gives, like, you know what I mean? In the end, he sacrifices himself because he actually does love something. Is that like Thanos is redeemed? That would be nuts.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Gamora and Vision, for me, have a big question mark over them. Gamora, for the reasons that you've just said. That it did appear that there was, I mean, obviously the Soul Stone is heavily connected, and there is, obviously we know in the comics there's the Soul World, and we did have huge hints towards this Soul World with the very end.
Thanos was in there. Thanos was in the Soul World with Gamora.
So that is a potential second life within the Soul World. Whether she can be brought out of there or not is another issue. But Vision, I'm very interested in, because this is what I don't understand, right? Vision died twice, which was just like, really? Twice? But
we don't know what happened with Shuri, though, right?
Yeah, this is the thing. This is my question, right? So this is the situation. Like, Shuri didn't do what she'd set out to do because she didn't get time. So unless this scene with Shuri was a moment of character development for Shuri in that she's super intelligent, then why include that scene at all? Unless it served another purpose. Perhaps Shuri did manage to do something like download Vision's consciousness or create a copy or something along those lines. I mean, because of all of the characters, Vision's the only one you could do that with. So there could be, again, a second life for Vision, just not in the way that we know him originally.
Well, we got a great comment in the chat, Gemma. Jeremy Kelton says Vision coming back in the white and gray like we see in the comic.
Exactly.
We saw him gray at the end there when, obviously everybody's mourning him.
I mean, let's face it, in the comics, no one dies. No deaths are permanent. Not like a single death is in the comics. The only deaths in the comics that are permanent are Uncle Ben, Spider-Man's Uncle Ben, Batman's parents. These are the permanent deaths because they're pivotal to that character and that character's motivation, aren't they? But the actual superheroes themselves never die. And I know people have been criticizing the MCU for its lack of consequences, but
this movie, Red Wedding-esque, man.
Exactly. People are calling this the Empire Strikes Back of the MCU, aren't they? In which case, The Return of the Jedi was a very happy, positive, upbeat film, which would lend us to the theory that Avengers 4 is not going to be as deep and dark, and maybe they'll all live and live happily.
No, the Russo brothers said in an interview 2 days ago that it's possible that things get reversed, but there's consequences if that happens. And we know in the first Doctor Strange movie where they talk about using the time stone in a way where it can affect reality, where if it's used improperly, it will ripple through the timelines and affect timelines. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think, like I said, like Captain America, and I'm for sure Cap is done. Cap's going to die. I'm sure of it. There's going to be some big shockers in Avengers 4. You thought this movie was going to get some tearjerkers out of you, Avengers 4. Not in the way where the snap, everyone dies, but permanent deaths. Phase 4 is coming. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of see where they go with it. I'm like, I don't know, Gemma. What do you think? Like, I'm like genuinely trying to think of what might happen.
I think you said it earlier on where we've got Ant-Man and the Wasp coming out soon. I think
on my birthday. I'm going to see it on my birthday.
On your birthday. Yes. I think the quantum realm is definitely going to, and I'm interested in the timeline of what, I mean, obviously it can't happen after Infinity War because, well, maybe it could. I don't know. I just feel that it has to be kind of running along parallel too. And you said earlier on about being in the quantum realm, does this affect time in some way? So when they come out, they realize half of the world's been turned to ash, that kind of thing. So, yeah, but I do think that's going to be a big part of it. And then how do we account Captain Marvel into this equation? And we've got just under a year to wait until we know any of that. I mean, obviously, it's set in the 90s. I love the little nod with the pager. But it was almost as though Nick Fury knew, wasn't it? He said, Code Red. He saw what was happening. And actually...
So Captain Marvel was like the last... Like, she's off doing something then.
It was like Nick Fury. I had the impression that he had a heads up on this because when you consider the amount of information Nick Fury had at that moment of what was going on, it was very limited. He knew that there were bogies over Wakanda. That was literally all that they knew. And then he sees people evaporating into ash, turning to ash and whatever. And there's this moment of understanding and recognition. This is the thing. And it's almost like he's been pre-warned. He knows that if this, so like somebody has said to him, maybe Captain Marvel, at some point in the future, if you see this happening, you need to call me. And that's kind of the way I view that. Did you read that in the same way?
Not really. I don't know. I mean, Nick has always been resourceful. I mean, we know that much, but it is interesting that he has that pager with Captain Marvel. We know that Nick Fury is actually going to be in Captain Marvel without the eye patch, and we know that they had a history. For those of you who don't know, Captain Marvel's character, Carol Danvers, was a NASA pilot, and she got exposed to this Kree nuclear blast, and she becomes fused with another Captain Marvel or Marvel. So that's going to be something that's interesting. So they have a bond, right? And we know that Captain Marvel is set in the 90s. So we don't know if the Skrulls have already been included in this movie. We don't know. Like, we know Ronan is going to be in this movie. So has Ronan already been in contact with Thanos that far back, right? We don't know if that's going to be a thing, Gemma. Like, we know that Ronan was
accused, isn't it? Not Ronan, who is the incarnation of Hawkeye.
We're talking, we're talking Ronan the Accuser, who is the first villain in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Dance off, bro. Yeah, him. Yeah, the turd blossom from the dance off.
By the way, so are we still doing our rap battle at Con of Thrones? Are you ready to just get slaughtered on the mic, or what?
Yeah, I've got a really bad throat infection, so assuming that I can get.
Oh boy, we got some excuses in here.
BBM agrees with me. He knew that there was only one person who can help, and that's Captain Marvel. There's been so much stuff, and this is what people have been saying. You know, why didn't he call her when the Chitauri attacked New York? Why didn't he call her when an entire country was being lifted into the stratosphere?
Captain Marvel,
why that moment? And for me, it just felt like it was a heads up moment. He knew. He sort of looked and he went, "Oh, it's a code red." And I love the fact we've now had 2 MCU films finish nearly on an F-bomb, because we had the Samuel L. Jackson mother, and then we had at the end of Homecoming, Aunt May sees Peter Parker and she goes, "What the f-?" And then it ends there as well. And that's twice.
You know what I absolutely love too, that we haven't talked about the fight on Titan enough yet, where Doctor Strange is like, putting Peter Parker through the portals, and Star-Lord does the middle finger thing again as he's jumping backwards. Because in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, he's doing this and he goes, and then it says obscenity, it says obscene, when they have the display, when they're all in the prison on so yeah, that was funny too.
If you throw another moon at me, I'm gonna lose it.
There was so much good comedy in this movie. Where is Gamora? Why is Gamora? That was the theater died during that moment.
You know, I've the biggest complaint I've seen about this film is that it was too much film. That people couldn't keep up. They didn't know all of the characters. They didn't understand all the different storylines, and it was just too confusing. And the way I view,
so the same thing we get with Game of Thrones. Oh, there's too many characters.
Okay, picture the scene, right? Series 1. I'm going to go back to Game of Thrones for this one. Series 1 of Game of Thrones, right? Let's assume you've never read the books, okay? And so the first ever episode of Game of Thrones you decide to watch is season 1, episode 9. And then you go, I don't understand. I don't know who any of these people are. I don't get the storylines. Why did that guy dying have why was that such a big deal? That is the equivalent of watching Infinity War without doing your MCU homework. If you have not seen Guardians, if you have not seen Age of Ultron, if you have not, it's like watching the penultimate episode of something entirely out of context, and I feel that, of course you're not going to understand. Of course you're not going to get it. You haven't invested. You haven't done your homework, and actually you don't really deserve to if you're not going.
I have a collection of comics downstairs, Gemma, in totes. Okay, I have Spider-Man, X-Men, Thor, like Deadpool. I got and they're old and shitty. I didn't take care of them, but I have them down there. And I would get every Thursday, if I was a good boy, I would get comics. I get to pick out a couple out at my mom's grocery store because they would have a comic section. I would pick a couple out, or I get to rent a video game, and I would pick out 2 comics on Thursday, and I go rent a video game on Friday. And that was if I did all my stuff, I did all my chores and stuff, I would be able to do that. So I collected comics, and that's how I got to get so many comics.
But this is the thing. I mean, we're both comic book geeks, and I know a lot of you in the chat are, but you don't need to be. to understand Infinity War, you don't even need to have watched all 18 of the MCU films. For me, there are a few standouts that you could have bypassed and still very clearly understood. I mean, my husband came with me to watch Infinity War. He is not into any of this in any way, shape, or form as much as I am. He has never seen Age of Ultron, but he understood it perfectly. He understood what was going on. He understood that Wong explained with his little PowerPoint at the beginning about the Infinity Stones. That was enough for him to know what's going on. He had seen Guardians of the Galaxy, so that was all put into context, and he followed it just fine. You know, you don't need to watch all of them, but you did need to do a little bit of homework to understand this. So I just feel like people are just being nitpicky. I mean,
there's some great points in the chat, Gemma. I know I want to do some shout outs too, because we got some people in here, which is awesome. We know that most of our viewers are Game of Thrones fans, but we are happy to have all of you here chatting Marvel, obviously. Broke Black Man's welcome back, by the way. Nice to see you. You can tell some reviews never watched a single or some of the Marvel films because they were quizzed on who certain characters were and storylines, and they just didn't know. And also, A's Cuz says, honestly, I expect people going into Infinity War to watch all the other MCU movies. So this is kind of a big gap, right? Because there is so many movies within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? And it is hard to keep up because they do release 3 a year. But
yeah, but to be fair, we had quite a significant heads up about Infinity War. If you really wanted to go into this film knowing as much as you could have possibly wanted to know, and you hadn't spent the last 10 years watching them, you could have just done what Linda R. has just said she's done in the chat, rewatched them all to catch up, which is what you did. That's what I did. I've already seen them anyway, but I watched them again and again and again, and then
Me and you did a rewatch right before we did Infinity War. I rewatched all the movies twice.
Yep, exactly.
Like so
Dad says I'm triggered. I am triggered. I am. I'm not even out of the blocks, to be quite frank. But let's move on.
Gemma was behind closed doors, fiery, ready to burn some people like Melisandre. For those of you that watch Thrones, no joke. And she's a redhead too, so. Everyone. Okay, so let's get back to the movie and then we'll take some questions. Gemma, let's go over some of the big moments in the movie. Obviously, one of the bigger ones was Cap showed up catching Proxima Midnight's spear. Obviously, we get the kind of lovey-dovey stuff between Scarlet Witch and Vision, and that was kind of a theme throughout the movie too. The love angles, Pepper and Tony, Gamora and Star-Lord, Vision and Scarlet Witch. We have all of those.
I've got one for you. When Banner sees Natasha again, obviously it's been 2 years.
Awkward.
And then Falcon says, well, this is awkward. Is that because Natasha has entered into a new relationship with a certain captain behind the scenes? Banner's been gone a long. Why is that awkward? I mean,
so you think that Steve Rogers and her and
maybe it just felt a bit. Why is it that? Is it that
time passed by? Right, the timeline. We know that some certain amount of time passed by.
And Natasha and Steve have been together for 2 years now. Not necessarily. We don't know. It's just a theory. Just something I'm throwing out there. Is that why Falcon found that moment so awkward?
What's interesting is Natasha and Steve did really act like they were parents to Vision. Like, you're not checking in. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you didn't call me. Like, if I don't call back within 5 minutes, my mother thinks I'm dead. So, you know what I'm saying? That kind of thing with Vision, the child parent thing, which is, I can see how you're getting that vibe. I didn't feel that way personally, though. Chat, what do you think?
We've got a bit of a mixed reaction to that. A few people are kind of chewing over that idea. Other people are just like slamming it down. I mean, no way, not interested, don't want to know. Cap and Nat have had heat in the past. Just saying.
The truck drive scene, if you go back to that one, Cap asks if she loves him.
But
basically.
G's name taken has correctly pointed out it did happen in the comics. But then so did Gamora and Stark in the comics. You know, there's been a lot of weird relationships in the
There's been
comics.
a lot of weird stuff that's happened in the comics. Actually, Zombie Hulk kills Thanos, so we could totally go there. But I don't
Can
think
I
that's
talk about, for me, what was I personally feel was one of the biggest, wow, what was that all about
okay.
moment? Okay. And for me, it was when Thanos turns to Tony and says, Stark. And Tony says, you know me? And Thanos says, yes, something along the lines of, you're not the only one cursed or burdened with knowledge. Now, Tony Stark did not know Thanos' name. They made a point of that at the very beginning, didn't they? He had to ask, what is his name? We saw it in the trailers. But Thanos knew exactly who Tony was. Now, we could say, yeah, he's got all of these stones and he knows everything now. But he didn't take a moment to mention anyone else by name. He called Spider-Man an insect. But Tony got his respect. And I'm thinking back to, obviously, Tony started it all. There's all these soul world theories with Tony. There's the
Well,
age
Tony
of
ended up killing the Chitauri army with a nuke, right, in outer space. We got to remember that.
Exactly. So, but is Zanami 037 in the chat says that was a very interesting moment, and I agree. That I don't necessarily know what to make of it. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Kyle, and any other thoughts in the chat. But for me, that was a kind of a what kind of moment. Like, where's that going? That was
a really interesting moment because he ends up shanking him after, and he's like, I kind of wish it didn't come to this, but it has. You know what I mean? Like Thanos was like, I got to do what I got to do type of deal. Like he had respect for Tony, which was really interesting. I found that interesting too, and that's why I think me and George have discussions behind the scenes. More like they're not arguments, but George has a bigger knowledge of Marvel than I do because he's been around for longer. Old Jeezy, 10-4-year-old. But I don't know if you'll watch this after. Anyways.
Oh, Geordie Jedi in the chat has just said something to do with Tony's dad. I hope so. I hope so bad. Because
there was also an interesting comment about Doctor Strange and contacting Nick Fury in the past too. That's interesting too.
Yes. The Soul Stone scene with Thanos sacrificing Gamora was powerful. Oh, it really was, Scott. I also really enjoyed immediately after the snap when he goes to what, let's face it, does appear to be the Soul World, and he sees child Gamora and she asks him, what did it cost? And he says everything. And that was also an insanely powerful moment when he said to Thor, you should have gone for the head. And how many times do we see bad guys reach that pivotal moment and they hesitate because they've got a big speech before it goes down? But no, Thanos just says you should have gone for the head and then just does it. I literally gasped out loud.
The theater, by the way, after that scene, when he's sitting down in silence on Titan viewing the sunset, which is kind of a contrast to Killmonger, who couldn't even enjoy the sunset. He said he'd rather drown with his with his ancestors who were jumping off boats to survive. It's that same type of scene, right? Because Wakanda is one of the most beautiful places in the world, and Thanos just basically ravaged that place. And then he gets back to Titan, and it's the same thing. It's all beautiful and lush, and it's like that contrast in that moment between Thanos and Killmonger is like, whoa. They kind of got that. I don't know. I just made that kind of comparison. That was interesting to me. But the whole theater, was it silent for you guys? Because one person was like, "What?" I was like, "Yes, this is awesome." Because
at one point,
I can't believe they actually pulled it off. Is what I'm trying to say. Like they did it. You know what I mean? And a lot of people said
there was this couple sat next to me because the first time I went on my own. And there was a couple sat next to me. And this is the first scene. And I think it was quite apparent that the guy was the fan and the girl had just come along for the ride. because when Loki is talking to Thanos and saying, like, we'll join forces, and he's got the knife behind his back, she leans over to her boyfriend and she went, "Do we like him?" And I just thought, oh my lord, you are in for a rough ride, love.
oh, sweet summer child.
Do we like him? And her husband just went, yes. And like, just shut up now. Like, just go, yes, we like him. Oh, but yeah, the Gauntlet. Q&A, G's name taken. Where is the Gauntlet now? We saw it. He had it, didn't he? In that very final.
It was like brutally effed up.
It was all like mashed up and it looked burned. But yeah, as far as we're aware, he's still got the Gauntlet itself doesn't look good. But like I said, the stones themselves, I can't see their power diminishing. They're Infinity Stones. So
well, I mean, he used the space gem to get. He used the space gem to get out of there. Like he traveled from Earth to Titan. I mean, he still used the Gauntlet. It looks messed up, but I think he can still use it. We don't know if there's another one, but I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see. He might be only able to use parts of it, and that might make him vulnerable to Captain Marvel and some of the other characters that get together in the next movie. Because this was a win for Thanos. He got what he wanted, but he's not going to get everything he wants in the next movie, I don't think.
But that's the question, isn't it? That burning question. Did he, though? Is he going to have a change of heart? I think it's quite possible that his undoing will come at his own hands in one of the interpretations in the comics. He does seem to be his own worst enemy. Nebula was able to take the Gauntlet from him, essentially through his hubris. So that's a potential. I just saw a question in the chat that I really... Devi said, have the stones diminished in power now? We don't know. The MCU does take liberties with the source material, and I enjoy that. But I can't see how these are Infinity Stones, and I've said it before. I'll say it again. I just don't see how they can have a finite power when they're called Infinity Stones.
Well, if they are going to go with the whole, I mean, Adam Warlock starts the Infinity Watch, right? I think that's where they're going to go with the next movie, because Xandar was destroyed, and then obviously, nowhere's toast. So they're going to do the Infinity Watch, and we're moving into phase 4 of Marvel now, right? I mean, Captain Marvel is definitely going to take on some of the Adam Warlock storyline, I believe, in the next movie. Like, we got to assume that.
Yeah, I mean, like, Banner took the role of the Silver Surfer when he smashed into the Sanctum Sanctorum and told them all Thanos was coming. That was Silver Surfer's role in the books, weren't they? But coming back to these Infinity Stones, there is another idea, another concept that might come into play. In the comics, there's countless universes, different universes, and each universe has its own set of Infinity Stones, and each set of Infinity Stones only works in their own universe. So if somehow Thanos could be tricked into going into a different universe, this is something, obviously, that then he could have as many Infinity Stones as he wanted, but if he's not in the correct universe, they are null and void. And yes, in that instance, they would have no power. So that is maybe some kind of trick that could come into play in the Endgame. I think we've decided it's called Endgame now, haven't we? That's what we're going with. That's
the rumor. I think they've decided on that one. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% on it, but it does look as if that's going to be the case. I mean, and Doctor Strange did say that in the movie, so that'd be really interesting if they did go with that theme. Gemma, some interesting theories for the next movie. Obviously, we talked a little bit about, possibly Thanos reversing everything. Could we see, I mean, we're gonna explore the subatomic realm in Ant-Man. I put out a crazy theory last week that somehow Thanos could, Ant-Man and Captain Marvel could make him go subatomic in the subatomic universe or something like that. Because in the comics, he gets turned to stone. He doesn't get to connect with Lady Death in the way he wants. In one of the versions. Obviously, there's the farmer version that we talked about where he wins and he reverses some things and then he becomes a farmer. But we kind of saw that ending. They kind of put parts of it into Marvel Avengers Infinity War. So what's going to happen in the next one? Is Thanos going to die? Because they clearly gave us hints that Thor might be able to kill him with Stormbreaker, and that he got pretty close. Captain Marvel is obviously coming in. Do they have to kill Thanos? Because we could be tricked into thinking, the big villain's going to die, but he doesn't die. You know what I mean? And it's like this a different ending that we have to grasp.
Well, this is the great thing, isn't it? I mean, and the simple answer to that question, Kyle, is I don't know. I mean, we've got lots of theories, we've got lots of ideas. We can dip in and out of the comics. I mean, it seems that the majority of this particular movie was taken from the Infinity Gauntlet series, not Infinity, which is also brilliant. But I mean, in the Infinity War itself, I mean, there are so many things I was convinced of. I mean, the big argument was who's going to die? Is it going to be Cap? Is it going to be Tony? And the answer was neither of them. And this is the thing. There were so many things that happened that nobody could call. But I would just like, and I don't want to be that guy that says, "Oh, I called it." But just give me a second, because Moonlit Maiden has pointed out Hulk in the Hulkbuster. When I was watching the scene, I was thinking Gemma called it. Ha ha ha. And I'm going to be that guy. I did call that. And you said, oh, no, it's not. Can you all remember that, guys? When we had that conversation, when Kyle insisted that it wasn't Banner in the whole because I can remember that. So I just wanted to put that one out there. But yeah, short answer is I have many theories, but I mean, they just keep throwing curveballs at us, don't they? So we've got a year to theorize.
Oh my! Like, how could I get trolled? Even like, you guys, behind the scenes, Gemma trolls me. Okay, if you think in me and Gemma's friendship that I'm the troll, think again, everyone. Okay, Gemma's the bigger troll out of the two of us, and I just absolutely flabbergasted right now.
You pointed out that the toys spoiled that, and yeah, I may have had a little inside information. And the very next day, I actually private messaged you a picture of said toy with mine and said, I told you that's the Hulk in there. But yeah, I'm gonna be that guy. I called it.
Let's get to a few more points before we get to some more questions here. Actually, let's do some shout outs in the chat. We got a bunch of awesome people in the chat here. Brooke, we talked earlier. Thanks for coming back. We have Emilio AU Packmeal has joined us. We're excited to see you at Con of Thrones, buddy. Johnny Harrison, Big E. Did we shout out Mama Olga earlier? She's been awesome in the chat today. We have Scott McCloy knows his stuff. Jordy's been going crazy. Tal Mascadan, hashtag Sansa forever. We love Sansa. Moonlit Maiden, nice to see you. And yeah, Sydney K. I see some people from the Marvel Amino, by the way. I want to do a shout out for that. Really cool community. If you guys know what Amino is, it's an app that you can go on your iPhone or your Android. And basically what you can do is, there's people doing like theories. You can do like little chats and stuff like that. There's one for Game of Thrones where I post my videos and my theories and stuff like that, and they're a really awesome community, and I've started interacting with them, and we're trying to get some people into our community from there. So if anybody from the Amino community is watching and going to check this out, I know they put us on the front page, so people will come check out our podcast. Like I said, me and Gemma just started doing Marvel content. But if any of you guys are out there, thanks for joining us. And if any of you guys want to go check it out, pretty much everybody has a smartphone nowadays. So go check out Marvel Amino, and there's all sorts of awesome theories. And it's kind of like Reddit, where there's like different threads and stuff like that, where you can comment on and chat with other people and do live chats and stuff like that. So shout out to Marvel Amino as well, if any of you are hanging out, and anybody that will be watching this video. Gemma,
also, I don't want to milk this, but there is now a call. They're calling the banners for Gemma, the Queen of Hype, on the wall of hype for just being so savage a minute ago. So I'd just like, in case you haven't spotted that in the chat, I'd just like to point that out to you.
You know what, Gemma? Before the stream, you know what I did before the stream? I created a thing called the Hall of Hype. And what it is for people that exemplify positivity, hype, and it's kind of like a permanent spot on the wall of hype. The Iron Bank of Karen owns the only permanent spot on the Hall of Hype right now. But we see Emilio from the chat right now, and we see the town drunk Helen. She doesn't know I called her the town drunk, but that's who she is. She's Helen Make Gin Great Again. But Gemma, I will put you on here.
Yay!
Gemma the Savage. All right, and.
Awesome. Well, you have no idea how impressed and how.
And by the way, it says 23 days until Con of Thrones. It's actually 19 days for me, and we are like $100 away from the $2,500 goal. You guys are crazy awesome. So we lost 7 patrons, but you guys have been awesome.
$95 because you've just had a $5 donation from Scott McCloy.
Hell yeah. I think we'll put Scott up there too, but Gemma, I'm gonna put you up there. Give me a sec, and Gemma, take over while I'm doing this.
Okay, right. So I've got to take over. No pressure. Thank you, Scott McCloy, for obviously your donation, but just all of you for being so awesome in the chat today. I know we don't always respond to every single thing that's being said in the chat, but I can assure you I do read it. And we're $85 now because the prince that wasn't promised has just donated another $10 for you, Kyle. Hype and love. So we will have a drink for everybody that has donated when we're in Dallas. I can't wait. I'm not going to lie. I'm a bit nervous. I've got a 16-hour journey across the world by myself, which is going to be fun, to say the least. But yeah, what are your Endgame theories? I mean, how do you think Avengers 4 will end on a positive note, or do you think it's going to be just as bleak? Are we going to continue with that theme of sacrifice, and what are we prepared to do? And are Steve Rogers' words, "We don't trade lives," are they going to come back to bite him in the ass, do we think? Because I think both Kyle and I are agreed they probably will.
Me and you discussed Bucky and Steve Rogers behind the scenes in privately. We didn't discuss that on video or anything like that. We were talking about a couple theories about that. Obviously, we know that, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, and Chris Hemsworth, their contracts are up. Other people have longer contracts, and I could see a scenario. I mean, Tony's been willing to sacrifice himself, but I don't know, that scene with Pepper where they talk about having a kid, Morgan, I think that Tony survives. He's one of the, because I think that Tony is going to have a lot of regret after I think that Tony's going to survive and Cap is going to die, which is like, you know what I mean? And then he will be like, why not me? Tony will change his tune a little bit about Cap, but I will take Captain America dying for him to change his view on Cap, and maybe Tony will do something in his honor or something like that. But I could see Captain America giving up his life for Bucky, because both Bucky and Falcon they take over the mantle of Captain America in the comics, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, and there's been a lot of speculation as to will either one of them take up the shield after Steve Rogers moves on in whichever way he decides to. Like you said, Chris Evans' contract is up. He's made it very clear that 4 will be the last time that he plays Cap. He wants to move on to other projects. So, and I think for me, it was this meta knowledge that kind of, it didn't spoil that final moment of people turning to ash, but we can't ignore the fact that when Bucky went, I was horrified, because Bucky, I love him, but yeah, let's face it, he's potentially expendable. But then when T'Challa went, and obviously Spider-Man and all the Guardians, I'm thinking there's a part of me that wants to suspend my disbelief and just be immersed in that moment, and it was traumatic. But then there was that other rational, logical part of me thinking, well, Black Panther's their biggest cash cow at the moment. They're not giving him up. I know
definitely not. Are you kidding me?
Exactly. I know Spider-Man 2's coming out, so they've
Black Panther, by the way, I watched it again last night. That is such a good movie. It's so good.
James Gunn is in talks about Guardians 3.
Oh, he's already got it. He's already got it.
Exactly. So we know that, Guardians 3 is going to be a bit shit with just Rocket, isn't it? Let's face it. So something's got to occur.
He's got an eye. That was one of the funnier moments that we didn't talk about too. Like when he gave the eye to Thor, I was like, Rocket, my God, man.
That whole dynamic between Thor and the Guardians was so surprisingly awesome. It was just absolutely beautiful. When Star-Lord's doing his deep voice, when Drax is having his man crush on Thor, it's like a pirate and an angel had a baby. And Gamora's, can you stop massaging his muscles, please? And they're all talking. And
that reference, by the way, that reference, what she talked about, his skin being like the fibers of it's actually Kree that turn into trees. They look very, very much like Groot. Funny enough, that reference is from the comics, which I found really interesting. So,
Kevin
Feige, we
find out how old Thor is, which was a revelation,
and 1,500 years old.
Yeah, which was amazing. And then when they obviously that whole relationship, that whole sort of subplot with the Guardians, then comes into its own with that incredible moment where they land in Wakanda, and he's got Stormbreaker, and then he says to Steve, "Oh, this is my friend. He's a tree. I am Groot. I am Steve Rogers."
Oh my God, Gemma, we can't forget, I am Groot. Like he gives that, and he's like, so I was like, wow.
I officially want a T-shirt that says "I am Steve Rogers" on it, and I will not rest until I have a T-shirt that says "I am Steve Rogers" on it. So if anybody at any point ever sees that T-shirt, please let me know.
Let us read some comments from the chat. G's name taken says Rocket is my Patronus. Red Sweat says the part when Spider-Man tells Iron Man in the Cloak of Levity is reacting to the conversation is classic. Oh, Peter Quill doing the deep voice. Oh, that one was good too.
Yeah. Bro Black Man has said, agree secrets. For me, the problem was before the film was released, they named Guardians 3, Black Panther 2, Spider-Man Homecoming 2, Doctor Strange 2. They should have held off. Yeah, it was very difficult for me to really be in that moment with that little voice in the back of my head. And the second time I watched it, I took my children, and my daughter was utterly beside herself. So I did have to kind of sort of explain, well, it's going to be okay, because Black Panther 2 is coming up, because Black Panther T'Challa is her favorite character. Actually, her two favorite characters are Loki and T'Challa, so my poor daughter was in a mess. So it's okay. He'll come back. Don't worry. Unless he doesn't. And Shuri takes up the mantle.
No. There's 0%. They're doing 3 Black Panther movies. Okoye when Sydney says Okoye when Scarlet Witch joins the fight. She was up there this whole time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, we needed her. She's like cool, like blasting people. By the way, that scene where she like Proxima Midnight gets like squished by and that's gross. She like Black Widow has like all of her guts on her face. That was sweet too.
That was a cool girl moment, wasn't it? With Scarlet Witch, Black Widow, and Okoye, and they were fighting Proxima Midnight. So it was all the girls. That was really good. But again, that moment, we did get that moment of humor. She was up there the whole time. Why wasn't she down here? But it was a plan, wasn't it? Because Proxima Midnight immediately says she's in the field, go, because they knew that the only thing that was preventing them from getting to Vision was Scarlet Witch's presence with Vision, so they needed to draw her onto the field. So again, it just shows that every step, every decision had those consequences, and they were heavy, impactful consequences the entire time.
Like there are this, like, I mean, Thanos is super intelligent. Like people think that he's just some brute, but he's a great strategist. And that showed that they knew what was going on. He had a plan for all of that. Now I want an I am Steve Rogers shirt. I am Steve Rogers. Damn, this is good. There was literally so many moments. Is Gemma dropping your microphone again?
No, sorry. I mean, my cat's just opened my door because he wanted in, and my family are all running around the house. So if I didn't, now he wants out. Just you take over.
What a dick! What a dick!
Out. Naughty cat! I'm doing a podcast. Go.
There you have it, everyone. We have a cat on the podcast.
That was super professional. I do apologize. And back to Infinity War.
At least Gemma's not dropping the mic and we're plowing on. Hashtag plow on in chat, everyone.
I've had no Englishisms today, have I, apparently?
My name is Gemma. I love tea. My name is Gemma. Sorry. I don't know.
I hate tea. I'm a coffee drinker.
I can't have caffeine at all. Guys, plus you wouldn't want to see me on caffeine. I mean, you thought I was hype already. My God.
We've been going for an hour and a half, so I have a question for you, Kyle, and for everybody in the chat. I've already answered this one myself, but for me, it was the conversation between Rocket and Thor, when Rocket says, "Oh, I'm going to have to be the captain," and they have that beautiful, heartfelt moment. Standalone, most favorite moment in the entire film. What was it for you? I know that's a big question. Just one. The moment that really, on whatever level you appreciated it. I mean, obviously,
it was Doctor Strange saying, Doctor Strange giving up the time stone and Tony getting saved, because I thought Tony was toast and I was like ready to lose my shit. That was the most impactful moment for me, other than the Peter Parker I don't want to go moment, and then him being like strong about it. But the one moment that really stood out to me, oh my God.
We've got some moments coming through in the chat. Moonlit Maiden's moment was dude versus man. That was absolutely.
Are we talking about saddest moment or favorite moment overall?
I think favorite, because that could be a sad and a powerful and adventurous, exciting, whatever you like. Mystery.
The moment I liked the most, and it was a crazy moment, is when Thanos used the time stone and he turns back time and then he just decimates Vision. That was nuts. I think that was.
Oh, that was brutal.
That was that was like a fatality. That was like brutality, like a Mortal Kombat kill. That was nuts. But I have to say my favorite moment was definitely man, there's so many. I'm being so shitty right now about this. But it was Doctor Strange. I'm just gonna say Doctor Strange and Iron Man together in the movie was my favorite.
That was another surprisingly fabulous dynamic, wasn't it? Scott McCloy, Groot giving his arm to become the handle for Stormbreaker. Mama Oga, when Tony tells Spidey, "Don't embarrass me in front of the wizard." And then, same as yours, when Doctor Strange gives up the time stone. Ica's dude versus man. That was quite a few people. A lot of people are saying Gamora dying. Thor joining the fight.
Thanos was the best character in the movie, but Doctor Strange was my favorite, if that answers the question.
Okay. So Doctor Strange is your MVP?
Yeah, he was the MVP of the Avengers for me. I thought Thanos was the MVP of the whole movie, but I thought Doctor Strange was close.
So that's the second last question. MVP. I'm with you, Doctor Strange. Surprisingly. That really surprised me, but yeah, MVP.
And you know what, too? It's because he's not someone that he has that comedic element about him. He's very like one note emotionally, and for him, like it was really nice to see more of him. He was more empathetic. He got like a little bit of a joke in there. You know what I mean? He opened up a little bit. It was really interesting to see his character development, because Doctor Strange, for those of you who have seen Doctor Strange, it's a really different movie. It's almost like it's not a Marvel movie. It's kind of same with Iron Fist on Netflix. It's definitely not everyone's cup of tea, right? Because of some of the ideologies and some of the messages in the movie. So because I'm a huge hippie and, I meditate and I love Buddhism and stuff like that, that's why I liked it so much.
I think with Doctor Strange, I think that's going to be our takeaway thought from watching the Infinity War, is that we're not 100% sure what it is, but Doctor Strange has a plan. And Jedi has literally just said that this is the only way. That's exactly what he said, wasn't it? Doctor Strange has got a plan. Maybe that could be the title of Avengers 4. Avengers 4, Doctor Strange has a plan.
So okay, so we're both in agreement that Doctor Strange and Thanos were the other two. Let's round out with the top three, and then we'll sign off. For me, the third overall, and it's a great point here by Red Sweats, is I'm a big fan of Hulk, so Thor filled that gap, smashing things, but he had so many amazing moments, reacting to Loki dying.
Yeah.
He was with the Guardians of the Galaxy, later morons. Like he had really funny parts. He had real he took on a neutron star. Like he did so much cool stuff in the movie. He almost killed Thanos. So as far as like the heroes went, like doing the most, him and Doctor Strange were kind of like, and it's so interesting because Captain America and Iron Man have always been the MVPs of the movies, right?
Yeah, for me, I'm on exactly the same page as you. Doctor Strange, Thor, and of course Thanos himself. Yeah, they're my top three, definitely.
Saddest moment for me, going back, top three, Peter Parker, definitely. The one that hit me the hardest was when Star-Lord found out about Gamora. That was the most impactful for me.
It was a sad moment, but for me, because of the tension of that scene and then nearly getting the gun off him, it wasn't sad in the same way. For me, it was Spidey going, it was Groot going and Bucky going, and not them going, but it was Steve's reaction, it was Rocket's reaction, and it was Tony Stark's reaction.
Groot dying was crazy. By the way, one thing I wanted to point out, Gemma, is the music during the Gamora scene where he kills her on Vormir. Wow, that made that scene more impact. Like the music they picked for that scene was like, holy crap! It actually made you feel for Thanos in that scene. It was, I didn't think I could, but it happened, and that was, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, it's just an action movie." It was so much more than that. And
so what have we got?
Bashing the movie. Get them out of your life, please.
So we've done MVPs, we've done saddest moment. Funniest moment for me was Drax that had been standing there for an hour. That was a laugh out loud, absolute tears.
Why Gamora? He had a multitude of funny moments, right?
He did, yeah. Okay, we're gonna wrap this one up because
we're gonna wrap this one up, everyone. Final thoughts. I really, really love the movie. I had to log off Twitter because some people were like, "Oh my god, it's not like a drama film like a Steven Spielberg." Like people were trying to compare it to like, real drama films that are like 3 hours. Like if that's not what it is, you know what I mean? Infinity War is a totally different movie. Where it ranks in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for me, I'm gonna have to see it again. I saw it twice, but it ranks in the top 3 for me. I really love Black Panther and Iron Man, the original 2. I really like all the movies, but this one, out of all the Marvel Cinematic Universe, was the most emotional movie. I can say that for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of in America, and this is the understanding I have. In America, an audience in a cinema will be very vocal in their reactions. Like they will cheer at the moment that Thor landed. They will whoop and cry. And in England, we don't do that, you see, because we're very civilized and we're very polite. And we don't want to disturb other people because it's not an English thing to do. Okay, so for an English audience to have a very vocal reaction to anything is an extreme rarity. And in my entire life, I have only ever been to the cinema on 2 occasions where at the end of the film, everybody has stood up and clapped. And that was for Les Miserables, the one with Wolverine in it, that one, and this, Infinity War. They're the only 2 movies that I've ever seen that has had a vocal standout reaction from the audience. Because, like I said, in England, we're all very uptight. No, they are. I'm not.
Critics that are giving this movie shitty reviews are crazy. This is one of the best cinematic events. It's not just a movie. It's a cinematic event. You have to go see it in theaters at IMAX and 3D. You have to.
Yeah, I can't wait for the Blu-ray to come out because apparently there's so much that has been cut, and I want to see all these additional scenes. I'm desperate to see those. So yeah, that I'll be queuing up outside HMV that morning, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. But you know, final thoughts. We both really enjoyed the movie. We'll probably talk about it some more. Who knows? Maybe we'll do another Q&A on. I mean, you know, when trailers come out for Captain Marvel, we can do an Ant-Man review too. We'll both go and see that opening night probably. Me and Gemma are both huge into this, but I'm definitely going to be doing more Marvel content on the channel. I'm going to be doing a bunch of videos on Marvel Avengers Infinity War next week. But of course, you guys know that Con of Thrones is coming up, and we're both trying to get focused on that. One thing that we did want to point out before we go, GoFundMe support has been amazing. Like, you know, I have a $2,500 Canadian GoFundMe going, and you guys have just been smashing that. So much thank yous that have to go out. Me and Gemma are going to do a video live in person together, live stream at Con of Thrones the night before Con of Thrones, and we got a little something special planned for you guys. And yeah, overall, we got another podcast tomorrow, right, Gemma? On your channel, we're doing Endgame Theories, Game of Thrones season 8, right?
Yep, we're gonna go into the show. I'm gonna get over my butt hurt about the show, and we're just gonna do it. And we're gonna talk about Endgame theories. And then next week, we don't know what we're going to discuss, but it will be Game of Thrones. It will be on your channel, and it will be a live FaceTime with Secrets of the Citadel. So lots to look forward to. But thank you for joining us today. You know where to find us. All the links are already in the description. Thank you for sorting that out, Kyle. Thanks for having me, and thanks for joining in with the chat. It's been fabulous.
So one more thing before we go, of course, everyone, if you do want to go check out Gemma's channel and her Patreon, she's, you know, if you guys want to support her channel, all of that is in the link in the description of this video, so you can go check out her Twitter and all that. So all of the links to Gemma's channel, if you want to go subscribe, if you haven't already, I know most of you have, or if you want to support Gemma's channel or hit her up on Twitter, say hi, all that's in the description of this video. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you smash that like button. We actually got 50 likes and 0 dislikes right now, which is amazing. We haven't had a dislike, so thank you so much for that. If you are going to check out this video later and you do enjoy this type of content, feel free to subscribe to the channel, of course. And if you do want to become a member of the Legion of Hype, the Hype Bringers, and a Patronite, link to my Patreon and all that is in the description of this video. We got a lot of Con of Thrones footage coming for you guys, and yeah, thanks again for tuning in with us. We really had a blast with all you guys in the chat, and we'll see you in the next one tomorrow, everyone. Hype and love.
I'm going to finish with a snap.
Wait.